The fisheries sector is a major source of livelihood for communities living around inland and coastal water bodies. It employs 60,000 people directly, while another 600,000 indirectly earn their livelihood through linkages in fish processing and trade. The sector, through fish exports, annually earns the country an average of Kenya shillings 8 billion in foreign exchange, while the 60,000 fishermen earn an average of shillings 4 billion, which translates to just under 0.5% of Kenya's gross domestic product. However, the sector has great potential for value addition, provision of rural employment and incomes, and in contribution to food security. But in spite of this great potential, the majority of Kenyan fisherfolk remain poor and food insecure due to high input costs, poor marketing systems, and stringent quality requirements in the international markets. The Department of Fisheries has shuffled variously through different ministries 8 times before ending up as a fully fledged Ministry of Fisheries Development in 2008. All this time, the sector has operated without a policy, leading to issues of low governmental budgetary allocations and insufficient supplementary donor support. The launch of the Oceans and Fisheries Policy was therefore long overdue.
I would like to declare the National Oceans and Fisheries Policy officially launched. Thank you.
The Ministry of Fisheries Development launched the Oceans and Fisheries Policy document at the Mkomani Fish Landing Site in Mombasa on the 6th of April 2009. Prime Minister Right Honorable Raila Odinga officiated at the launch, accompanied by a high-powered government team that included Minister for Fisheries Development Dr. Otuoma, other ministers and assistant ministers, the Permanent Secretary, Professor Ntiba, and Chemfree and Fisheries Directors. Also present were other stakeholders, including members of Parliament, parastatal chiefs, and other dignitaries, as well as members of the public.
Tumetumia wakati mwingi, tumetumia pesa nyingi, tumetembea Kenya nzima. Hii imekuwa very participatory process, na sisi kwetu leo ni furaha kubwa. Na ningetaka from my own heart and on behalf of the ministry to thank everybody who participated in this process, because without you we will not be here.
The Oceans and Fisheries Policy seeks to revitalize the subsector so as to increase productivity by improving marketing systems and infrastructure, enhancing aquaculture extension, and encouraging private-public partnerships in processing and value addition.
The overall objective of the policy is to create an enabling policy and legal framework for a vibrant fisheries sector based on sustainable resource utilization, gender equity, and wealth creation. The specific objectives of the policy include to promote conservation and management of fisheries resources, to generate employment opportunities, to maximize revenue from fisheries and other related activities, to promote safety at sea, to develop aquaculture, fish farming, to develop ocean fisheries, to effectively manage and develop the country's fisheries resources. The policy identifies as critical the strengthening of fisheries department by creating 4 directorates, namely marine and coastal fisheries, inland and riverine fisheries, aquaculture, fish quality assurance, and marketing. These directorates will each carry out specific roles which will in turn result in overall improvement in management of the sector.
Before the official launch, there were presentations and displays from relevant key institutions among them Kemfree.
This technology is very important for the Lodwar Turkana area because of these storm dusts. If you have found a bambla from Lodwar, it's very popular, but it has a lot of dust. Now, they have already introduced this there. And through this kind of technology, it means they're going to be able to pack them like this and put them in supermarkets because the shelf life can be determined. And then you'll not have those quality issues with those insects that lay maggots on them, and then the sand that comes on them, and then the dryness can also be ascertained, whereby you can give it a shelf life.
Kemfree is optimistic that it will be the main bridge through which those involved in the sector will be able to access their accrued benefits from this profession. This was demonstrated during the policy launch through impressive presentations and displays by Kemfree scientists from these research units. The presentation focused on and showcased concrete results and ongoing research realized from demand-driven research programs.
When we do some GIS mapping, we find that most of the fishing actually is done very close to our areas. And most of this fishing is actually IUU. Now, having identified that problem, the Jeff World Bank actually gave us a grant of $12 million to collect historic data and new data. Now, this new data, from a national perspective, actually will assist us to identify, stocks that are within our Kenyan EEZ. And secondly, we envisage to actually increase our average tonnage on an annual basis from what we have currently, which varies between 7,000 to 12,000, to all these tonnage that we are seeing, that we have just in the pelagic alone, we have 300,000 tons.
Kemfree is further committed to providing competent scientific data and information for sustainable management of fisheries and other aquatic resources. This is in line with the government's development policies presented in the Kenya Vision 2030 document and the Kenya Government Millennium Development Goals as presented to the United Nations.
The Kenya Marine and Fisheries Research Institute, Kemfree, the research arm of the ministry, the policy clearly outlines its mandate and gives focus on demand-driven research. This will help to guide fisheries extension, management and development of decisions. To effectively address this, the Institute will be restructured into 3 directorates, mainly aquaculture research, inland research, ocean and marine research. Let me reiterate here that deliberate measures have been put in place to ensure that efforts and investment into research are translated into action by our extension officers.
Other presentations at the Mkomani landing site were from the Ministry of Fisheries Development, Kenya Maritime Authority, Beach Management Unit communities, and private entities. The future of this vital industry lies with the support of other key stakeholders and effective implementation of the policy, which will guide the ministry in pursuing national fisheries sector development objectives in line with the overall long-term growth strategy of making Kenya a newly industrialized middle-income country, providing quality life for all its citizens by the year 2030.
Ladies and gentlemen, currently, Kenya's marine fish landing stands at 7,000 metric tons. With the implementation of the fisheries policy, it is estimated that this could rise to more than 200,000 metric tons, valued at over 10 billion shillings annually by the year 2014. For this to be realized, the government needs to invest in a fish port with adequate infrastructure to handle up to 500 fishing vessels per day. In this regard, the government has embarked on plans to construct a fish port at Lamu in this province. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank the Minister for Fisheries Development for the emphasis he's putting on development of aquaculture, which is the surest way to reduce pressure on fish caught in the national waters. As a country, as countries continue to face the challenge of satisfying food demand, the global trend is to develop aquaculture to a level where its production is at par with national fisheries. Currently, our aquaculture production stands at 1,000 metric tons, valued at 137 million shillings. This is only 1% of our annual fish production. The policy proposes measures which, when implemented, aquaculture production will rise to 15,000 metric tons, valued at 1.1 billion shillings. I therefore urge the Minister for Fisheries to engage his colleagues in Parliament so that every constituency in the Republic embraces fish farming. I am also informed that as part of the master plan for implementation of this policy, the Ministry intends to revamp aquaculture centers of excellence at Ngomeni in Coast Region, Sagana in Central Kenya, and Kabonyo in Western Kenya. The government will fully support this initiative. To further enhance production from this sector, the government will also continue to encourage establishment of public-private sector partnerships in fish seed and feed production at constituency levels. One other challenge that has hampered growth of the fisheries sector is the increasing incidence of illegal, unregulated, and unreported fishing activities which occur in our water resources. I am, however, encouraged to note that the policy proposes the establishment of a people-friendly monitoring, patrol, and surveillance unit which will safeguard our exclusive economic zone and our transboundary waters as we develop the necessary infrastructure for the industry. We should now begin to look at and handle our fisheries resources as a vehicle to wealth and employment creation. Ladies and gentlemen, with these remarks, I would like to declare the National Oceans and Fisheries Policy officially launched. Thank you.